Welcome to another edition of the Sim Racing Garage. I'm Barry Rowland, and in this episode, we're going to be reviewing one of the new F1 wheels offered by 3D Wrap and SpeedMaxRacing. This is a collaborative effort to produce a wheel with a nice feature set at a reasonable price point. Time to put this wheel through the Sim Racing Garage review process and see how it does. So let's get to it. Now let's take a closer look at the 3D Wrap F1 wheel. Now this wheel is actually designed and produced, that's what they say on the website, by 3D Wrap. Then they send it over to SpeedMaxRacing, and they actually do the final assembly, and they do the handles, I believe. I was looking at their Facebook page, and probably do all the electronics part of it, but the actual design part is 3D Wrap. So two companies are collaborating here to make this wheel happen. Very nice. Right, so the first thing you're going to notice on this wheel, and I have it plugged in to show you that, is a 4.3 inch LCD screen. And this screen is not a touch screen. It's the regular type where we have to use buttons to make things happen on it. And it will run the Z1 software. Now, the Z1 software is a very popular software with wheels, but you do not get a license with this wheel, at least I didn't. And so you got to go pay your $25 and get your Z1 license, and then you can run it and all the goodies that come with the Z1 software once you have your license. And they have this splash screen programmed in here, so I thought I'd show you guys that, showing the SpeedMaxRacing splash screen there before we get on with the rest of it. So let's go ahead and unplug it. Nice coiled cord here, and yeah, it actually, when I first got this cord, it was a little bit more, it was more compacted. But I tend to stretch them out because I got a long reach over to my computer from my rig. And yeah, and actually, to give credit to 3D Wrap and SpeedMax, this actually reached, which was very, very nice. It was actually able to reach my powered hub. And most things don't. I have to run extensions and things. But anyway, usual USB cable here. Actually, it's got a nice slick finish to it, so it doesn't grab. It's not abrasive or anything. And of course, the usual USB-A standard connector on the other end. Right, carbon fiber plate here supports all the buttons and is actually the handles also. So it's all one piece carbon plate that's been cut, and then they put the handles on. Now the grips are really nice. They're hard, but they have just a smidge of give to them when you press on them, but they are pretty stiff. And it is a good feeling grip. It's typical F1 fare. It's not big and thick or anything. And yeah, I didn't have any problems with comfort as far as using this grip. And of course, I use gloves all the time when I drive anyway, even though you wouldn't need them for this material. Now they're calling this material Alcantara-like, which I'm not sure what that means, but it's very smooth. It doesn't have that suede leather texture to it like the Alcantara does. So yeah, I'm not sure what that is, to be quite honest. And it's all hand stitched. So they've done a pretty good job here with the hand stitching, I think. It looks pretty good. You see it's got the little scrunchy seams there. I know this is not an easy thing to do, because I did try a little bit of stitching on a handle before once, and it is a pain, no doubt. But yeah, this is done quite well. I like what I'm seeing here as far as the quality of workmanship here. And of course, we've got 6 buttons and 2 encoders, and they're just the usual fare as far as what they do. You just map them in game when you get in game to whatever you need them to do. You can also map these in Z1, which I did, so I can actually shift in between different screens back and forth while I'm running down the road. We've got a couple of knitters on the top. Nice tactile, good feedback on this, and they have these 3D printed little guards or shields, whatever you want to call them, around these particular buttons. And this knitter over here works the exact same way. Good tactile feedback, although it is got a little looseness to it there. I'm not sure what that is, but yeah, it's but it never failed or anything. It never stopped working. It didn't, and it always gives you, it still gave me a good tactical feedback when I'm using it. So yeah, I guess I can't complain too much about it because it got a little shake to it. But I like to show everyone everything I find on anything that I do a review on, as you guys probably know. Right, so we've got the carbon fiber plate, by the way, is just over 3 mils thick, and the one on the back here is also 3 mil thick. The one on, they got a smaller carbon plate here on the LCD screen, and that's actually a little bit thinner. It's more like, I'm guessing maybe 2, maybe a little less. But anyway, it's just a little cover here. And you can see the decals here. When you get one of these wheels, you have to order it, and they'll make it or assemble it. And I'm assuming that you can also, I didn't see it on their site, but I imagine if you asked, you can get whichever type of stickers or labels that you want on your wheel. So very cool there. I'm sure they can do just about anything you want if they can do this. And I think you can actually get different color stitching on the handles. So we've got some stickers on the buttons themselves, but that's definitely a wear point when you put these stickers on buttons, and you might want to order up a couple of extra of the same. So moving forward and you're using this and it starts fading away, you can pop a new one on. Right. So not much else to see on the front here. And we got like a big beauty ring, if you will, that's covering up the electronics, right? Instead of just having bare electronics back here, because this does not add any structural integrity to this wheel, because there's metal standoffs in here that are taking care of that. But it's a nice kind of like a beauty cover, if you will, and it's got the 3D wrap logo on it. You can see that there. And on the other side it says, where the cable's coming out, it says made in Italy, and there is a cable gable mechanism in here that's keeping this from coming out. So it's a stress or strain relief internally to this, and we'll see that once we get it open. All right, on the back also, we have again that other carbon fiber plate. We have 4 more of these bolts that are going into the other side of the steel standoff, or metal standoff that's in here, supporting and clamping everything together. We've got some magnetic shifters, which actually have good tactile feedback. I don't have any problem with these. Maybe just a hair light for my personal preference. Of course, that's totally subjective, and yeah, it's just, to me, I'd like something a little bit stiffer because the rest of mine are a little bit stiffer. But that did not hinder or impede my shifts at all. Never had a problem with these shifters. They always shifted when they were supposed to. But if you'll notice, this is a little bit different than I've ever seen before. We've got carbon fiber on the actual paddle part, but the lever and the assembly here, the housing assembly for the shifter mechanism, is all 3D material. See how well you guys can see that. It actually says 3D wrap on the top of it over here. So this is all a 3D material, including the clutches. Clutches the same way. They actually did that with the 3D material also. And this hub is actually a 3D material. PLA, some kind of PLA, all this stuff is, I'm pretty sure. And like I said, it's the first time I've seen that done that way, and of course we've got steel screws and everything supporting the shifters, and we have steel screws in here supporting the actual levers. And of course these magnets don't look like to me that they're very interchangeable, because it's pretty small as it is, so I think we're pretty much set on that. And the clutches themselves work well. They don't do the bite point with these clutches because there's no way to set the bite point, but they will work as a regular clutch. And the only thing about the 3D print stuff here is it still makes noise. It's not quite as loud as an all metal type of magnetic shifter, which could be a good thing actually if you're trying to keep things quiet. But no magnetic shifters are absolutely quiet, as we know. But these clutches are pretty quiet. And the clutches are actually set up with some potentiometers down here. Got one here, got one here. And of course, as we're turning this, or we're moving this paddle, that potentiometer arm that's coming up from this side of the potentiometer and going into the other side of this 3D mounted lever portion here. Same thing over here, obviously. And the magnets, I'm not sure if the magnets are what they're for, because we know that we're getting the signal from the potentiometer, but I guess that maybe they're reverse magnets and giving it some spring because the magnets going against each other force each other apart. That's the only thing I can imagine that they're doing. And that would work well, actually. And it does work well. It does spring back pretty well. Only thing is, there is some, and I'm going to show you this. Over here on this shifter, when I move this shifter here, you can see there's actually some movement going on there. See that? And I believe that's because of the tolerances of this. Of course, it could be the potentiometer itself, the housings, but I'm more inclined to believe that the tolerances here for this 3D printed piece are not the same, because this one doesn't do that. See how this one does? Get up there so you see it. See, it doesn't really do that. But you can see it's also closer in the housing over here. Now, I don't know if that's adjustable. It doesn't look like it is to me. But yeah, you could probably put something in here, like a piece of rubber or whatever, just to tighten that up so it wouldn't do it anymore. Didn't affect the performance when I was using it. Never had a problem with that. So it's just something that, like I said, anytime I see something that I don't think should be doing that, I'll show it to you when I do my reviews. Right. So, but again, it didn't affect anything as far as performance. It actually worked every time. Didn't have any issues with it. All right. So now we've got this 3D printed hub. Now, this is probably, I'm guessing, 100% infill. And you guys who do 3D printing know what I'm talking about. So there's no hollow points or there's no hollow suctions in this, I imagine, in this hub. It doesn't look like it to me, and it sounds pretty solid. And when I actually took it off to put my quick release on, I checked it out too, and it didn't seem like it seemed like it was 100% infill, which makes it a solid piece of PLA, which is very solid. Didn't have any problems as far as flexing at this point of the wheel. Now there was a little bit on the carbon fiber, a little bit, but once you get it mounted to one of my direct drive wheel systems, I did this on the Bodner system, the SS2, and yeah, there is a little flex, but it's basically in the carbon fiber plates itself, but not much. And you know, you're not going to get completely solid anyway with any rim that you have. Any rim I have some kind of flex in it. But the important part is it wasn't here, and I did have 6 bolts going around here. Speaking of which, the way this was designed, as far as I can tell, you put your bolts in, you put your quick release plate on here, and then you'll put your bolts in from this side, and the nut will be on the other side. And you can see here they've actually cut some spaces in between where the actual screw or bolt comes through. Right here, it's got a little flange on it. So you could put a square, a nut in there. But my problem was, I didn't have a nut that would fit that. I used these size right here, and this is actually an M6 nut, and if I slide that in there, it goes in okay, but the problem is it'll just spin around on me, and because of the high edges here or ridges next to that, I can't get a wrench on it sideways to it. So yeah, I was not able to use that. I'm sure that's what that is for. And you have to find a bigger nut. Maybe you could run an M7 or well, anyway, it's an M6 hole, I think. I don't think you can run anything bigger than that. But no big deal. It just makes it a little bit more fiddly to attach your quick release, and I'll approach that once we get to it. The main thing is you have to unbolt it from this carbon fiber plate, and we'll see that once we do a look inside. And that's not a problem either. It's just that when you bolt it back up, these nuts that you see in here that are holding this hub to this carbon fiber plate tend to kind of move around on you when you're trying to put the screw back in and get it started. So it can be a little fiddly that way, but I found out if I just tilted it this way and I could actually tap on it a little bit, the nut would tend to fall back down, and then I could bolt it back on. Anyway, that's really something that you may or may not encounter, but I did, because there's just, I just didn't have, it was just too big right in here, as you saw, to capture that nut tight enough. And it's so deep in there that I can't get a wrench on it. So maybe there's another way to do it, but with what I had, that's all I could do. And the screws I was using, again, was the M6 screws, and of course you see they fit in there rather nicely. And there's no way to get this screw, and it has to be long enough to obviously engage this and the quick release plate, right? So we need a pretty long, or at least some kind of a length on it there, so it'll go through the plate and still be able to get a nut on it. But there's no way I couldn't get this to slide in. And then even if I could, I got to get a wrench on the top of that thing. So yeah, that's just not going to work. Anyway, we'll see that once we get to the look inside, which I believe that's where we're going to be going next. So we pretty much covered everything on the outside, I believe. Yeah. So what we'll do next is go ahead and we're going to take these 4 screws here out and see what's going on inside the wheel. All right, now for the fun part. Let's go ahead and pull the back off of this and just see what's going on inside. And we're going to use a 3mm wrench for that. And there's only 4 bolts we'll be taking off here at each corner of this assembly. And I'm pulling the bolt out to show you this is a flat head type bolt. And let's put that to the side. And there's some spacers in here also that you're going to be mindful of. In fact, if I would have left that bolt in, the spacer may have stayed on it, but now it's loose in there, and I'm going to have to retrieve it. Not a big deal though. All right, now once you have those bolts loose though, this whole assembly is going to be loose, okay, including this shroud or beauty ring that's covering the electronics. See how that's loose? It all comes off, and then this comes off the back of that. So I'm just going to kind of tilt this sideways and then kind of tilt everything away from it like so. All right, and you can see on the bottom here these spacers I'm talking about. See them hanging on those bolts? And what I'm going to do is go ahead. It looks like I've lost 2 of them, which is not uncommon when I take this apart. And you have to be mindful, obviously, all the wires in here. And I'm just going to go ahead and pull these spacers off and set them aside because they're going to fall off eventually anyway. And then we'll go ahead and take the rest of these bolts out because we're going to be maneuvering this around so you guys can see things, and I'm sure these bolts are going to fall out. And there are some spacers in here, and I'm going to go ahead and use my tweezers. I just happen to have a handy set of tweezers here. And there's another one in here somewhere, but I think I'm just going to pull the shroud off the bottom part a little bit and shake it, see if anything comes out. Well, okay. Oh, there it goes. I just heard it. There it is. Ha! There we go. Got the final spacer out. Go ahead and get these tweezers out of here before I scratch something up with those. All right, so now let's take a little look here. And again, being mindful, we don't want to stretch or stress these wires at all that are in here. All right. And yeah, so far I like what I see here as far as the wiring is all nice and color coded like it should be. And we have some nice, let me go ahead and actually flip this around this way. I think I can one-hand it this way. Yeah, there we go. So we've got some nice wiring done here. Let me get the right pointer here. And you can see it's all soldered into these shifters and down here on the potentiometers. And we've got some nice shrink wrap on everything to keep the wires from ever touching, causing issues. You can see there's a breakout board here for all the buttons and the shifters and clutch. And on top of that, it looks like it's a larger teensy board. This is a USB interface, basically, converter. And you can see the USB plug coming off of that. I don't know how well you're going to see this, but underneath that, there's another USB cable coming out that's plugged into the actual 4.3-inch monitor or LCD monitor that we have on the front. Now, the curious, and it's a nicely done job here. All the wiring's done nicely. The plugs, obviously, it's not just wires soldered on. These are actually some nice plugs that they've put on the ends of the wires. I'll just carefully pull that off and make sure I put it back on the right orientation. Don't want any problems with the, let's see, this one's for the clutch, okay, potentiometer. Okay, make sure my wires stay color coded here because we don't want the power and the ground to get mixed up. Right, now what's thing that I noticed here is a little bit curious, and I'm going to flip this around. Maybe we can get a better look at it this way. Is, see that the way the USB-A plugs are in there? They're on this bar that's like a USB interface. And so we've got 2 USB devices plugged into this, and then that allows us to wire this into one cable. Very cool. And then of course it goes to our computer through the USB plug. Now you can see there's also a cable gable mechanism in here. See that little slot there? It's got a clamp around that that has a bolt on it, and that you're not going to be able to see that bolt because it's black and it's a black background, and really I doubt you'll ever see it because it's hard for me to see it too, but there's actually a screw there that's cinched down on top of this cable, and then that is slid down into this slot here that's manufactured into that 3D printed shroud. Okay, and then we can also see, let me turn it back around one more time so I can one-hand it, that structural integrity between these 2 plates when they're clamped together is provided by these nice hefty looking steel screwed or threaded inserts. You got a little hexagon type of top on it so you can get a wrench on it. So yeah, very solid when you bolt these 2 together with those 4 bolts that we saw before. So yeah, really not much else to see here. Oh, I did want to talk about this hub here that we're going to be attaching our quick release to. So let me turn this back around. I'll turn this around 20 times and we finally get what we want here. Right. So there are 6, obviously, because we saw from the nuts on the other side, we've got 6 of these screws here. Now, because of the way I'm going to be mounting my quick release here, I think will this stand up? Don't anybody blow on anything or breathe. All right. So I'm going to be putting this Q1R on here on the other side, obviously, and I need to bolt that in. And if you saw the closer look, I discussed this previously, that I can't just, this thing is designed here, it looks like to me, to just drop it in the bolt from that side, and then you put a nut on it down there, and the nut is captured in these two sidewalls. Well, the nuts I'm using for my 6 mils just aren't wide enough, not even near wide enough for this slot here, so I'm not, yeah, I just can't use it that way. But if you had a wide enough nut that would accommodate a 6 mil hole, that you see here, these holes, then you could use that to keep it from turning when you were tightening down your quick release. And it's too thin here. When my nut goes in there, I don't have enough reach on it to get a wrench on it. So it is what it is, and that's why I'm going to have to take this off these 6 screws, and they're just 6 screws obviously going into the nuts on the other side, as you can see there. And I'm just going to have to take those off. The only thing is it's fiddly, because going back on, when you're putting these screws back in, they have to catch those nuts that are captured in their own little holes that are also in a hex shape, so they don't spin around on you. So you don't have to put a wrench on it. And yeah, as you're pushing the screw in, sometimes it'll push the nut away from it, and you got to kind of push and screw at the same time. Again, just a little fiddly to get this whole unit back on. Once I have this assembled, then I'll put it on as one unit. It'll go back on as one unit. All right. So anyway, I just want to show you that. That's how I'm going to actually do my mount as far as the quick release. And so what I'm going to do is go ahead and do that, put it all together, and then we'll come back and see what the final assembly looks like once I have my quick release and everything bolted back together. Just a quick look to see how I actually have this mounted. I've got my Q1R release on here, obviously, and this is a steel plate. All of the Q1R assembly is all steel, and it's mounted again to that 3D printed hub piece. And it actually, you know, as I've said throughout, you know, I'm not crazy about 3D printed hubs, but this one actually seems to be pretty stiff. And yeah, if you put your hand on here and try to twist it, there's nothing. It's just solid. It feels really, really solid. So yeah, I'm not too concerned about it as far as withstanding the forces of my direct drive force feedback system. But yeah, I made sure I put 6 bolts in. Sometimes I'll just put 3, like 1 at top and then 2 at the bottom here. But for this application, I want to make sure that I have 6 in here, again, because of this 3D PLA material that they're using for the hub part. Right, so just a quick look at that. Now we'll go ahead and mount it to the rig and see what it looks like. Okay, now a quick look on how we have the steering wheel mounted. Got my 2-inch aluminum spacer in there, and we are obviously using the Q1R. We're going to be running this on the 54G Cole Morgan motor on the sim steering system that I have. So I just want to give you a quick look on how this is mounted. Next, we'll take a look at the Z1 software that's going to run on the screen here. And here you see I have the dashboard for the car that I'm running in, and I have buttons actually mapped to different dashes, which is very cool. You know, I forgot how useful this thing was. I haven't had a screen that I could use the Z1 on for a while now, and as other than my computer screen, obviously. But yeah, this is very cool to be able to go through the different setting screens and different telemetry screens while you're in the car running down the road, and of course when you go into the pit, checking on fuel usage and things like that. Z1's a very, very deep piece of software, and it comes with other things too. It comes with this cool analyzer. I'll show you a shot of it here. And yeah, this is, we can actually see what's going on with the car as it goes around the track. I think I'm at Le Mans here. And yeah, it gives us everything, of course, the normal braking and throttle, engine RPMs, ride heights going over bumps, you know, left and right, front, rear shock deflection, all the usual things that we need in our telemetry when we're reading out our telemetry information to find out what we're doing wrong, or how the car is actually behaving, and what we're doing wrong with our setups or what we're doing right with our setups, depending on the case, of course. Right, and it also comes with this server software that allows you, if you don't have a 4-screen like I do, and I can run my dashes on my 4-screen, you can actually run this server on the sim computer that you're running your sim on, and have like a 4th monitor or another computer, a laptop, a tablet, something like that, and actually look at the dashes on that, because the server that's running on your main computer that's running the sim will actually feed it over to another computer, which is also a very cool function. And obviously it's something that's nice to have free, because it comes with the Z1 software. Right. So anyway, just want to show you some of the things here that the Z1 is capable of. I really like this software. I forgot how much I liked it. Anyway, what we'll do next is get to the actual driving of this wheel and see how it does. Okay, so here we are at Sebring in the Lotus 79, and yeah, running iRacing. Have the 54G Cole Morgan driver set at 100%, and I'm running the wheel at higher than normal levels of torque for me in a normal race, because I am trying to stress out this equipment and see if I can find a weakness somewhere while I'm testing it. Right, so F1 wheel, it's 280 millimeters, as we may have discussed before in the video, and also it's a very light wheel overall. Without the quick release, the Q1R quick release on the back of it, it's just like 2 pounds and 2 ounces. So a very lightweight wheel. Of course, that changes once we put the quick release on it. And the lightweight wheel will transmit sharper force feedback input into your hands than, let's say, a heavy wheel, like a 4 or 5 pound wheel on the same system. And that's just the way it works. And yeah, it felt a little bit sharper, but I actually adjusted my driver a little bit to compensate for some of that. But it's nice to have a lightweight wheel because, yeah, it doesn't make your DD system work very hard. And the PLA that's all over this thing, well, maybe not all over it, but all the pieces of PLA that they use are the 3D printed parts, helps reduce that weight. So yeah, a lightweight wheel that transmits force feedback very well. And yeah, the PLA hub, mentioning that, the 100% infill, and so it's actually essentially a solid piece of PLA. Just didn't even break a sweat, as I said earlier in the video. If you guys saw a closer look, or rather, yeah, I think it was in a closer look, that there was no stress signs at all on the hub after I ran it for put about 10 hours on it. So yeah, can't complain there. It handled it well, and I was just a little concerned about it. I do like to see aluminum and steel, but yeah. Maybe this is, I guess, the wave of the future anyway, is the PLAs and all the other materials that they can use 3D printing keep getting better and better. Right. So yeah, other than that, everything's working great. It's I can't really find anything to dog this wheel about too much. The Z1 screen, let's talk a little bit about that. Yeah, the screen that I have Z1 running on. Yeah, I forgot how much I like Z1. If you've been watching this video, you've seen I've been shifting through these different pages or dashboards or display pages that I can use while I'm driving to get different amounts of information. And I forgot how much I like this Z1 software. I haven't had a dash wheel in a while, and yeah, it's welcome to have one again that I can see what's going on. In a race, you can actually tag drivers and see what's going on, or even practice sessions and see what the lap times are doing and where they are on the track. So yeah, Z1 software really is something special. And it has that, as we saw before, if you watched that segment, it has the analyzer software that is similar to like a Motec. It shows you all the information you need to know as far as an analyzer is concerned. That's free, it comes with it. And of course you have the capabilities of running a server on your main sim computer like this one here, and if I had a laptop or a tablet or something like that, I can actually project those dashboards over a wireless connection onto them. So, but I have a fourth monitor, so if I really want to do that, I would just put them all up there, I suppose. Anyway, Z1 dashboard, you don't have to have an LCD to benefit from it either. I mean, you can just go ahead and put it on your fourth monitor or whatever else you have to get the information you need. So yeah, I really like the Z1 software, and it's come a long way since the last time I used it, as far as they just add, there's a ton of different dashes and information you can get off of this thing. Right. So anyway, yeah, it's a whole system, including running the Z1 on the little LCD dash here. Yeah, I really enjoyed using this wheel, so I really have no complaints. I can't dog it for anything. It did what it's supposed to do. It did the job. So yeah, what we'll do next is just get on to the final thoughts. final thoughts on the F1 wheel from 3D Wrap and SpeedMaxRacing. You know, it's great to see more and more custom wheels being offered to the sim racing community. Modern manufacturing processes and materials are allowing wheel builders to deliver features that, well, just a few years ago would have been available only on the most expensive custom wheels. Now, here we have an F1 wheel with most of the features, I think, that you would want in a new wheel. It has magnetic shifters, it has a decent mix of buttons and encoders, and it has dual clutches, although without a bite point function, and of course the LCD screen. They also offer other custom wheels for purchase. The F1 wheel is very light at a bit over 2 pounds, so it can be used on non-DD wheel systems as long as you have, of course, the proper mounting solution. The shifters worked well with good tactile feedback, and there was really no dramas using the clutch paddles. But again, I do wish that they had a way to set the bite point. And as you saw in the closer look segment, the left clutch paddle has some movement in its 3D printed housing. The 3D printed hub, however, performed well with no indication that it could not handle the high forces that some DD systems are capable of delivering. I would like to see a better implementation of how you connect the wheel side quick release. It was just a bit fiddly to get my Q1R mounted. Overall, I like the feature set that you get on this wheel for the price point. It needs a bit more attention to detail before they ship it out, I think, because of that 3D printed housing, and just to ensure no one else gets one of those. But really, that's something that's quite easy to fix, I think. I would say that if you were in the market for a custom F1 wheel or even a GT wheel, that you should give these guys a look. I'm Barry Rowland, and thanks again for watching the Sim Racing Garage channel. And don't forget to hit the subscribe button and help support the SRG by visiting our website at simracinggarage.com.